I don't think more discipline is always the answer. And that might sound strange coming from a martial artist because I actually like discipline. I like pushing myself. Sometimes I need to stop negotiating with myself and just do the damn thing. But that's exactly why I started thinking about what discipline is actually for. Sometimes you absolutely need discipline. Sometimes you need to do the thing even when you don't feel like it. You need to follow through on a commitment. You need to train even though you'd rather sit on the couch all day and watch your favorite Netflix series. Sometimes you need to do boring work. Sometimes you need to keep going when motivation disappears. Sometimes you don't feel like doing it, but you gotta do it anyway. So that's a totally reasonable use of discipline. And discipline itself isn't the problem. Like, discipline is a neutral thing. The problem is when discipline stops being something we use and it starts being something that we're supposed to be. So discipline often gets framed as obey the rule, do the thing, follow the plan, keep going, ignore your feelings, right? And somewhere along the way, we tie this up with our sense of identity and often some morality to it. So we start to think in terms of, I'm disciplined, I'm undisciplined. What would a disciplined person do? What would a lazy person do, right? We create this binary and this morality behind it. And instead of saying, well, what's the best decision in this situation, we're trying to prove something about who we are, right? It becomes tied to our self-worth, okay? And that's where discipline becomes a problem. Discipline is a tool, and as a tool, it can absolutely be useful, but often we see discipline as a personality trait, a moral virtue, some kind of expression of who we are, of our identity. And that's not it, right? Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not, as many tools are. Discipline can be a useful tool without becoming our entire identity. Okay, so personal story, there are all these different rules about how to be a successful creator, how to be a successful content creator. Post X number of times a week, hook people in the first however many seconds of the video, make certain kinds of videos depending on your niche, follow the algorithm, don't disappear, keep posting, be consistent, right? Hustle, grind, and for a while, I got really good at trying all the different rules out there, all the different playbooks from different creators, because I didn't know anything, right? So I thought, well, here's all these suggestions out there, I'm gonna try it. But eventually I realized that I was following all these different playbooks and building a way of working that didn't fit my life, didn't fit with the way I wanted to do things. And it wasn't that those rules were bad. Some of them were absolutely useful and I still do those things. I still follow those quote unquote rules, but I stopped asking, does this actually work for me? Okay. And I was spending all this time saying, what am I supposed to do? What are the playbooks out there? What are all the guidelines? What am I supposed to do to be successful as a content creator? And along the way, I've realized, I can pick and choose and try, use different suggestions and, rules from different creators and work it together in a playbook that works for me. So I started to create my own system rather than following everyone else's. So the bigger problem with all this is that discipline can tell you follow the plan, but in any particular situation, it doesn't tell you if it's still the right plan. And real life comes up, right? Real life creates situations where the rule book doesn't always give you the answer, okay? Do I push today or do I rest? Do I keep a commitment or acknowledge that circumstances have changed? Do I stick with this habit because I said I would, or do I admit that it's no longer working? I've gone through that lots, okay? Do I need more effort or do I need to change something? Eventually you have to make a judgment call, and that's where discipline isn't enough. We need more than just discipline, okay? Because when we just focus on discipline, we're asking things like, what would a disciplined person do? What does the rule say? What am I supposed to do? Really much better questions are, what do I need right now? What is my life telling me right now? What is coming up? Okay, what am I noticing about my life? So what's happening is you're outsourcing your decision making to discipline. Instead of trusting yourself to make those decisions, you're following a rule book, okay? And you can get really, really good at following rules while becoming increasingly disconnected from your own judgment. And I've done this where I've just followed what everyone else was telling me to do, all the suggestions because I felt like I don't have the experience or expertise. And then over time, I lost that connection with my own judgment, with self-trust. I lost self-trust. I lost my trust in myself to make those decisions myself or what was best for me. Okay, now let's look at our training. This is a perfect example of this. You can have two rules here. One is be disciplined, follow the rules, follow a program, no excuses, okay? And the other rule could be listen to your body, rest when your body tells you to. And neither of those rules are bad, right? But they're not sufficient on their own, okay? So maybe you train hard one day and the next day you feel kind of sore and achy. Your muscles are sore, you're feeling tired, and you feel like, I don't particularly feel like doing this today. And in that case, sometimes the response is, yeah, I trained yesterday, I'm sore today, and that soreness is expected, so I'm going to train again, okay? But another day, maybe it becomes more than that. Your joints feel a little off, the pain is getting worse, you're adjusting the way you move because of some nagging pain, you've got something hurting now, you've got a higher than expected level of fatigue, okay? Then the appropriate response in that situation might be, I'm changing the plan. Neither response, whether, train again or change the plan, neither of those makes you more or less disciplined, right? It's not about discipline. You're doing something that's harder than just blindly following the rule book. Okay, what you're doing now is using judgment. And that's a much harder thing to do. Okay, you're paying attention and making a judgment call. So instead of the opposite of discipline being, doing whatever you feel like or being lazy or that kind of thing, think of it this way. The opposite of discipline is discernment. It's using that judgment. It's finding the nuance in any particular situation. Okay, and that's really important because trust yourself can easily become, I don't feel like it, so I'm going to skip it. And that's not what I'm saying at all. That's not what I'm saying. Just self-trust isn't blindly following your feelings, just as self-trust isn't blindly following the rules. Sometimes your self-trust says, I don't feel like doing it, but I need to do it anyway. Sometimes self-trust says, something isn't right. Stop, pay attention. Sometimes your self-trust says, hey, this plan isn't working, it's time to change the plan. Okay, or you fell off the plan, no problem, get back on track. Okay, so discipline says follow the plan, but discernment, judgment, being able to see the nuance, it helps you decide whether that plan still deserves to be followed, right? Or maybe you need to make adjustments to that plan. So discipline doesn't answer the question, can I trust myself? Can I practice judgment and discernment, right? And if taken too far, discipline can become a substitute for answering that question. Because if there's always a rule telling you what to do, you never have to make a decision, right? Self-trust, though, it gives you something different. Because when you trust yourself, you can rest when rest is needed. You can also push hard when pushing hard is needed. You can adapt when that's what's needed. You can change direction when life changes, right? You can return when you fall off track. You don't need someone else's rule book for every situation anymore. So then the hierarchy changes. We have self-trust at the top now and discipline underneath. Okay, self-trust is the big thing. And under that are all the different tools we have available. And discipline is one of those tools. Sometimes useful, sometimes not. And self-trust chooses the tool that is appropriate in any situation. Okay, and obviously this goes way beyond the examples that I've provided. It goes beyond content creation, it goes beyond training. We're surrounded by rules that are telling us what to do, how we're supposed to live, what we're supposed to believe, who we're supposed to be. Okay, and some of those rules might be useful, but some of them might not be. But I think it's worth asking whether following those rules helps us make better decisions, or whether maybe perhaps we've stopped making our own decisions at all. Okay, so let's get back to my original question from the start of this video. What is discipline actually for? Okay, it's there when you need it. Okay, sometimes you need to stop arguing with yourself and do the damn thing. I don't know about you, but as a long-term runner, I used to spend mornings walking around my house with one shoe on and one shoe in my hand, arguing with myself, do I actually want to run today? Okay, sometimes you need to just shit or get off the pot, right? But the goal isn't to become someone who blindly follows rules, right? I know I don't want that. I don't want to just become someone who's really good at following the rules. I want to be someone who can trust themselves enough to know when a rule is useful, when it isn't, and what to do when there are no rules, because sometimes there aren't. And discipline can help us do that, but discipline itself doesn't need to be the goal. It can just be a tool in our toolbox. And sometimes, as a tool, it's the exact one we need.